It's the Rush, Utah high school sports every day. Here we go, Larry said hut. This interview is brought to you by Appliance Wholesalers Plus. Trust the boys that sell GE and Samsung at AWP. They've been supporting Region 9 athletes for over 25 years at AWP. Welcome back. It's the Rush. We're thrilled once again to have the Director of Scouting for Prep Baseball Utah, Taylor Berg, in the house. We're going to be talking about the 6A state championship matchup today. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about 5A, depending on what happens today in those games. But overall, Taylor, it seems like it's been an awesome tournament week in the upper classifications, right?
Oh yeah, it's been a great couple weeks. Thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's fun to talk ball, man. It's the best time of the year. I
Yeah,
think,
absolutely.
the spring in is the pinnacle, right? I mean, a lot of kids play summer and fall, but spring is still where it's at, and love seeing kids play and represent their high schools. So it's been fun 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with talking about Skyridge a little bit, Taylor. I don't know a ton about this team. It seems rarer and rarer these days in the era of the RPI that a lower seed is able to make it to the state championship. I know it happens occasionally, but
Yeah.
Skyridge, as the 7, has made it all the way there. What is your thoughts about Skyridge in general? And then I'll ask you about a specific player we're going to spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely. Skyridge is the epitome of high school baseball and having a good coaching staff, right? They have good players, individual talent, but I think their strength is the collective sum. They're extremely good and very consistent at 1 through 9, leaning on each other. And I've watched them play a few times. They legitimately lean on each other and believe in each other, outside those top 3, 4 guys, and they consistently get it done. I mean, you can pick a game. There's someone else who's the star, right? They're really well coached. They put balls in play. They make defensive plays. They throw strikes, and they just keep coming, right? I don't think their superpower is necessarily just individual star power riddled throughout the lineup. Not that they don't have good players. I'm not saying that, but they're just so good at playing the game, right? Like they understand how to play. They're not relying on 1 or 2 players. They don't need a guy throwing 90 plus to try to beat a lineup. Oftentimes they're leaning on guys who are 80 or below and just mixing and matching, changing speeds, missing barrels, making plays defensively behind them, and they just play with such a belief in each other. It's really cool to see. I was actually a 7 seed a few years ago, and we made a run to the state championship, and that was very similar with us. We did have some star power, but it was more that belief in each other, and you can't fake that, right? I've won as a player and as a coach. You gotta really believe in each other in those tough moments to make a run like they're making, right? They're beating good teams. They've had a really good month and a half. Ryan Roberts is one of the best coaches you're going to find. His son, Ripken's one of the leaders, Miles Robinson. They got some young guys, some other seniors that step up as well. They're just fun to watch. They just don't quit, man. They just keep coming, right? Like I said, the epitome of just high school baseball. You don't have to be a future college player to be successful and go win games, like right. So they're fun to watch. I think they've got a legitimate shot. They're here for a reason. They deserve to be here, and it's fun.
There's some about that mojo, right? Where
Oh yeah,
things get clicking in tournament time and you throw out whatever happened in this series when they played in the regular season, because this is a totally different animal, obviously, in
yeah.
bracket play. So I hope that's the case and they're able to battle a very good American Fork team. Let's pick a player on Skyridge, the spotlight, whether he's an X Factor type of player or one of their stars, Taylor. Who we doing today?
Yeah, like it's man, like I said, it's tough. Like just depending on the game you pick. I mean, Zayden Bai had a huge game this week. He hits out of the back half of the lineup and carried him to a few RBIs. But I would say one player that really he had a tough beginning of the year. He had a broken bone in his hand and it's still broken, but he's working through it. It's Miles Robinson. Man, he is one of the most electric players I think in the class and in the state, especially when he's healthy. And it seems like he's either just really battling through it, or he's starting to get a little healthier because he's been going off. You know, he he's 6'2", 6'3", runs like a deer. He's long, left-handed bat, incredible center fielder, and plays with an infectious confidence. Man, he's one of those kids that you walk up and introduce yourself, he'll look you right in the eye, shake your hand, and I feel like that's somewhat rare for high school kids sometimes these
Sure.
days. And he's just really mature for his age. He's going to go play at Cal State Northridge in California next year. I would not be shocked if he made an impact as a freshman. He's just got that kind of talent and the tools, right? But he's just got really good makeup. I've seen him go 0 for 3 with 2 Ks and still be a positive, you know, influence on the team in that particular game, right? So he's a really mature player, really good player, high ceiling. And Ripken Roberts, Coach Roberts' kid, he's going to go play at Nicholls State in Louisiana for Coach Herring, former coach at BYU. He's another 6'3", really athletic player, plays shortstop. They play with so much confidence. I think the team just feeds off it, right? Those two setting the table, and then they've got a bunch of good role players. Like I said, Zayden Baez had his moments. Luke Robley, really exciting sophomore. Boston Sundberg behind the plate's been a rock for him. They really kind of collectively get it done. Obviously that's why they're, in the championship game, right? But those two at the top are special talents, really good players, and have been for years.
Love talking ball with Taylor Berg here, director of scouting, prep baseball, Utah. He knows these teams and these kids better than anybody. Let's go over to the number 1 seed, American Fork, who is expected to be here. Taylor, what's their route been like, and what have you been impressed by in general about the team?
Yeah, I think what you said there is what I take from it. They're expected to be there, right? They've been there so many times, and Coach Ingersoll is such an incredible coach, has such a good thing going over there. Their staff is great. They just keep churning out really competitive teams, really talented players. And I don't think people realize how hard it is when you're expected to be in a certain spot, expected to win. Ask Spanish Fork, they're not sneaking up on anyone this year, and they're
Yeah.
getting everyone's best effort, right?
Yep.
When you're number one, you're getting everyone's best effort every time, especially when you're the defending champs. American Fork doesn't sneak up on anybody. I think that's what impresses me the most is they, even with all the attention and everybody knows they can play, they continue to find ways to win games and not let that creep into their mindset. And they just don't get cocky and overlook anybody. It seems like they treat everybody the same. They're relentless 1 through 9. I've seen them play probably close to 10 times, if not a couple more than that. And I don't think they've rolled out the same lineup 1 through 9 ever. They just keep mixing and matching and the team seems to understand, hey, it could be my moment at any time, and they step up, and they're not relying on one player, even though they are riddled with future college players up and down the lineup. Sophomores and juniors and seniors, they're really, really talented. Pitching, hitting, defensively, I mean, they check a lot of boxes, but it's the way they play and the way they're coached, I think, what sets them apart and continues to feature them in these games in late May. And they definitely have a legitimate shot to run it back, but like we've been talking about, Skyridge isn't going to go quietly, right? But they're as gritty as they come, and I expect a really good series. But American Fork, man, they're fun to watch. Really well coached. They continue to be in this spot every year, and I don't expect anything to change while Ingersoll is in charge.
Yeah, what would you say the similarities are between some of these programs, regardless of classification, that tend to be in the semifinals every year, the state championship every year? As a program leader yourself, just within the last couple of years at Juan Diego, what would you say is something that is a through line between all these traditional kind of powerhouses in baseball in the state?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's 2 words. It's buy-in, right? Every program has, an off-season mentality or goal, what they're trying to work on, and get the kids to play a certain way or whatever it may be. The buy-in is ultimately, I think, what makes a team successful long term. And it just seems like no matter the year, you pick a year, American Fork gets that. Skyridge gets that. I think Coach Ingersoll and Coach Roberts are two of the very best. You have Snow Canyon winning 4A, Coach Sechrist, one of the very best. They were big on buy-in, right? They just keep coming. I use that word relentless. I don't use it lightly. It just feels like they're down 4 or 5. They are not out, right? And you cannot sleep. You cannot, let your foot off the neck, or so to speak, right? You've got to put them away if you get the chance. And I think that's huge in high school, right? I mean, it's not like you're, in like college where you can recruit openly your entire roster and you pick your players. Like it's who's in your area, and you got to get the most out of who you have. And they continue to do the best jobs with it. Coach Roberts has been great for years, dating back to his college coaching days. Coach Ingersoll has been doing it. I mean, their resumes speak for themselves at this point. I don't think it's like I said, they're not sneaking up on anyone. Just the
Hmm.
way they get kids to buy in. They have great coaching staffs. I think that was a when I was a 3A coach, we had a smaller staff, great staff, but moving up to 4A, I remember going to play Crimson Cliffs in a super regional. They were defending champs at the time, and I remember looking over across the field, the dugout, and I'm going, we have 4 coaches, including me, and I'm looking at 8, maybe 9 guys over there, and it started to dawn on me that man, we're not doing a good enough job at practice. We're going to lose this series, and it was lost back in practice. We just didn't have enough time to be able to really invest in the players and get that one-on-one time. And it was hard for me to run a year-round program. Some of these programs, especially American Fork, they're working out together in the fall. They're doing morning lifts, they're doing them in winter. It's not they do it in the summer. Like they just are constantly around each other, building that culture. And it just seems like they're plug and play with whoever comes in. They just continue to pump out success and really high end talent, right? So I think it all starts at the top, and then those guys really set the tone, and they're so embedded in that culture now that it just seems like, man, whoever's there is going to have a chance to continue that tradition of success.
Great insight. Let's do a player from American Fork. I know it's hard to pick one. We can talk about
Sure.
a few of them, but
Yeah, I
who's the
mean, they've
spotlight
got a
player
few,
today,
like I
Taylor?
said, they got a few, future college players, some guys committed, Kenny Johnson, Buddy Guerrero, Cash Polson, those guys are all, we've talked about a few of them before, but I'm going to pick a guy who had a really breakout year. His name's Gavin Robinson. Man, he's been killing it. I think he was honestly their offensive catalyst to start the year, or especially in March. I mean, he was absolutely raking, but not quote unquote household name, right? He's not currently committed to play ball, but man, he's oozing with confidence. He's right in the middle of the lineup. I've seen him hit anywhere from 2 to 4, 5 hole, and an everyday second baseman. And he just goes up there and takes great at bats every time, right? He's been that. You got to have kids that step up that aren't your quote unquote dudes to start the year, right? He
Hmm.
is the dude now. He's been killing it all year. They've really leaned on his offense and his leadership. His attitude's been great, man. He just goes in there and does whatever he's got to do for the team. If it means hitting a ground ball to second base and move a runner from second to third, he'll do it. If you need him to bunt with 2 strikes, I'm sure he'd do it. He's the epitome of that, man, team first mentality. And I think he's turned into a leader for him based on what I'm seeing as far as just the way he approaches the game. He's a very sound defensive player. He's left the yard a few times. He's got some sneaky pop. He's really broken out this year. And last year, he played, but this year's just been different, man. Something in the off season or what it was, but he's really been killing it. It's been fun to watch. And for me as a scout, a lot of those bigger name players are a little easier to find and watch, but it's discovering guys like Gavin is really fun for me. And I knew Gavin going into the year, but I wouldn't have anticipated him being one of the catalysts offensively for the number one team in 6A. But man, he absolutely has been, and it's been fun to watch his growth and progression. And I think he might serve an LDS mission, but he absolutely deserves a shot to play next level baseball. If someone gives him that shot, I think they'd be absolutely pleased to have him join. He's been
Awesome.
awesome.
That's awesome. So our spotlight players for our player for American Fork, Gavin Robinson for Skyridge. Miles Robinson, looking forward to the 6A state championship series. Before I let you go, Taylor, the 5A matchups that are probably going on right as this is coming out, being posted. Pleasant Grove, Maple Mountain in a game, in a second game, and then Westfield and Spanish Fork, 1-4, 2-3, chalk. A lot of people wanted to see these 4 teams battle it out in 5A. So hopefully we'll have a chance tomorrow to highlight, preview the upcoming 5A state championship as well. But any quick thoughts about tonight's games in 5A?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be there. It's going to be fun. It's been fun all week. It'll be the third matchup of the week in both cases. And PG and Maple played region games, right? And Westfield putting up 7 in the seventh the other night to
Yeah.
Spanish. And then last night, Spanish had to put up 1 in the seventh to tie the game, force an eighth inning, scored in the eighth, and then they ended up taking that. And so we forced another game. So I get your popcorn ready. I think it's going to be great. They've been incredible games, both matchups. High-end talent on both. Westfield's first full year as a program. Last year they kind of, had to play half a year, right? Guys were transferring in, so it wasn't really that. So this is really their first go round, and Coach Barfus, first year head coach, like he's got these guys playing at a high level. They are oozing with confidence as well. They've got really good players up and down that lineup. I think they're a little bit slept on just because they're a little further north, and but they went on a 20, I believe it was 21 game win streak at the end of the year. So they are really good. I don't care what region you're in. It's hard to win that many games in a
Yeah.
row. So I'm really excited to see the games tonight. I expect high energy, really talented players up and down, and it should be a fun night.
All right. Thanks, Taylor. You're the man. Best in the business. Taylor Berg, Director of Scouting, Prep Baseball, Utah. And we'll be talking again soon, hopefully. Enjoy the games tonight. And go say hi to Taylor when you see him out there. He's a friendly guy. He knows baseball better than anybody in the state. And we appreciate his time on The Rush. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. Send us your highlights, Andy at therushutah.com or anywhere on social media at The Rush Utah. It's The Rush Utah, high school sports every day.